Okay, so let's get started. We're at Berkeley time now. Okay, so welcome to lecture 4. Today, we're going to have more problems clicking the slides. But we're going to first talk about points and travel philosophy. So kind of the mindset that you should be in, and also the fact that you have to burn your points. You do not want to be hoarding them. They're not an asset that ever really goes up in value, so they're definitely something you should be burning. We're also going to talk about some very popular credit cards. We've talked a lot about the concept so far, and then I'd like to talk more about some specific examples of what cards people tend to get and some pretty useful credit cards. We're also going to talk about kind of a little bit of a review of what we talked about last time in terms of flexible points currencies. And this also kind of relates because we're going to talk about familiarizing yourself with like very common credit cards, right? So credit cards that a lot of people get and that the major banks issue. So first, let's do points philosophy. So there are certain things that are certain in life. So Benjamin Franklin once said that in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. I would like to amend that quote and say that nothing can be said to be certain except taxes, death, and points devaluations. Actually, I stole this from someone on Reddit, but that doesn't matter for now. So yeah, points always go down in value. Very, very, very infrequent that they would ever go up in value. So the mantra that everyone in the game really says is to earn and burn. You do not want to be hoarding your points. They will almost always be going down in value. You should be spending them, and you should be having fun. That is the entire point of points. So spend them, don't hoard them. Obviously, if you're saving up for some big trip that requires a big redemption, it's a bit different there. But you don't want to be holding your points for 5 years, because I promise you they're going to be worth significantly less than when you got them originally. So you want to be spending them fairly frequently, maybe at least once a year. So I want to again talk about the idea of free travel, because it's not always free. We're going to be talking about annual fee cards today. And annual fee cards can be very useful in that they can help you reduce travel costs. You do pay a fee for these cards, but overall they can reduce your travel expenses. And if you're taking this course, I'm going to assume that you have at least some interest in traveling. Otherwise, I'm not sure exactly why you're here. But assuming that, right, annual fees only make sense if you can offset the fee with the benefits that the card provides, right? So a good annual fee card will provide certain perks and benefits to you for paying that fee. And the idea is you should only hold that card if paying that fee provides certain perks and benefits which offset the fee. So the idea is you're supposed to be coming out ahead and, in a sense, net profiting from holding the card. Any questions so far? Okay, so a way to look at points, I feel like a lot of times people approach points and travel hacking with the wrong mentality to it. So sometimes people will say, I want to use points because I'm go to these destinations every year, and that's what I always do every year, and I want to use points to reduce the cost. You can do that. That's something that you can do, but you're not really maximizing the value there. Points don't work equally as well at all destinations. It might not be smart to use points every single time you travel. There are places where it really isn't a good value to redeem points, and so you want to be a bit more sparing in how you use them, right? You can still do it for suboptimal redemptions. I'm not saying like don't ever do that, but the idea here is that it's better when you're more flexible. And kind of the whole, I don't know if I want to say mantra exactly again, but the whole idea is that their points are best used when you can use them to experience something that otherwise you would not be able to do. You will get the most value from your points and miles if you look at it through this lens. Maybe you go on some trip every year and you want to reduce the cost on that. That's fine. You can do that. You're not maximizing the value. If you look at it through the lens of I'm going to experience something with this that otherwise would have been impossible for me to do, that's when you can get a lot of value from your points. And that's kind of the beauty of the system. It's something that you now get to do that otherwise you couldn't. There are other ways in the world to save money on things, and I feel like this is a much better way to look at it in terms of what can I do that I couldn't. So before we move on to the next topic now of, again, a little bit of a review of the flexible bank currencies, do we have any questions? And it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about the last slide or anything. OK, so this is a review of last time. But again, there's two types of good points cards, right? There's co-branded, and there are flexible. So we're going to go through this very, very quickly. But just as a quick review, right? So co-branded, those are the hotel and airline cards that you earn points directly with the hotel and airlines. And you can't really transfer them anywhere else. I mean, you kind of can, but it's at a suboptimal redemption rate. So it's not really smart to do. And then there's flexible currency cards, right? Which earn bank-issued points, which then can be transferred out to the travel partners, right? So it's kind of like these guys here, you can transfer their points to the co-branded points, but you can't do it the other way around. That's not to say these are worse. It's just they have different optimal ways of using them. So, right, we kind of looked at this last time. Just wanted to recap this. So, again, the benefits are flexibility, right, in the name. Flexible points currencies give you a wider net of what you can do with the points. Another benefit with them is protection from devaluation. Is protection from devaluation. So the idea is if I have a transferable points currency, and let's say one of the transfer partners heavily devalues the points, I am more protected because I have a more diverse set of places I can transfer my points to. So I'm not entirely ruined if the brand decides to make their points less valuable. And the other benefit is consolidation, right? Because multiple cards from each bank earn the same type of flexible points, it's much easier to create a larger balance of them and use them towards a larger redemption. You notice I said previously you don't want to be hoarding your points. This isn't hoarding your points. Sometimes the good redemptions do require a lot. The idea is you want to acquire them quickly so you can burn them quickly. You just don't want to be saving them up over years and years and years. So, OK, same last review slide here. So again, having a transfer partner is what makes flexible currencies useful. And different banks have different transfer partners. So the two main ones here are American Express and Chase. So you might see that American Express has more transfer partners than Chase. That doesn't necessarily mean they're better. It just means they have a wider range of them. Chase has some very, very high quality partners, such as World of Hyatt. Amex does not have World of Hyatt, so that is kind of a big weak point in American Express points. So with our review out of the way, let's start talking specifically about Chase Ultimate Reward points. So we're going to call these UR points. So when I say UR, I mean Ultimate Rewards. You can earn Ultimate Rewards points in a variety of ways with a lot of different Chase cards. And you can transfer freely between each of the cards. So if I have multiple Chase cards that all earn Ultimate Rewards, I can move them in between each other however I want, right? As long as they are my cards. Whoops, OK, yeah. So they're technically earned separately on each card. That's something to note. But you can transfer them between your cards however you like. You can also transfer UR points to one other member of your household. So not just to a friend. It has to be someone like in your household. So if you live at the same address, it's like that's good, right? The reason they have this is to prevent people from selling their points online. So the idea is they don't want people just transferring them out to random strangers on the internet for money. They want to make sure that you're only using it for yourself or someone that you live with. So yeah, don't go try to transfer it to people outside of your household. They might let you do it, but if they look back at your account and think you're trying to sell them, they will shut you down. So not advisable. And I do not recommend doing this at all, but just as a floor base value for what UR points are worth, they can be cashed out at a rate of 1 cent per point. So under no circumstances whatsoever should you ever get a rate less than this, because you can literally cash them out at 1 cent a point. What it will try to get you to do sometimes is to use your Ultimate Reward points for Amazon purchases, but when you do that, it's actually a rate less than 1 cent per point. So it's abysmally bad because you could just cash it out at 1 cent a point, take the cash, and you would still be ahead. But either way, yeah, don't do this. Not a good idea, but that's the absolute floor value. Oh, and then, so for this, this is an example of how the points are earned on separate cards, technically. So these are like 2 of my cards. And right here, you see the points balance is actually different among them. I can transfer freely between the 2 cards however I want, but they're earned on separate cards, technically. That matters because if I close, let's say, this card, I would need to transfer the points from this card to this card. If I don't do that, I lose the points. So someone on Reddit posted a story about how they had 500,000 Chase points in one of their Chase cards, and they forgot to transfer it out, and they closed the card, and then they lost the points. They eventually did get them back because they really kept pushing Chase for them. As understandable, that, like, yeah, I would be very mad. But it could happen, so make sure that you are in an active Chase card, at the very least. Any questions? Yes?
Do points ever expire?
Great question. So for the flexible currencies like Chase and American Express, they will not expire under certain circumstances. So for Chase, as long as the points are in a card that is currently open, they will not expire whatsoever. If the card is closed, usually they will give you a 30-day window to move it into a card that is open. But if I, let's say, close this top card and never transfer the points, then they're gone. For American Express, we'll talk about this in a second as well, but all your points are actually pooled in one account. So there's multiple American Express cards that earn their points currency. But even if I cancel one of those cards, it's fine because they're all in the same account. I just need to hold one of their cards that earns their points currency. It doesn't matter which one. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, yes. What's your question?
Are there rewards for the points like different from, like, for example, like if you had the Chase Ultimate Rewards card versus if you had the Chase United card, would the same amount of points, would you be able to reap the same benefits, or would it be different?
So your question is if I had, let's say, like different Chase cards and they had different, like, could you repeat the question?
Like
Yeah.
this is for, like, they're all transferable points, but what if you had like a Chase card for like only branded with one of these like airlines or companies, then would the, like, to redeem one flight, would you need the same amount of points on both cards?
Great question. So the way, in terms of if I have multiple Chase cards that have different points balances, so for example, the Chase Freedom, which we'll talk about a little later, that card earns a different types of points currency than the United card, right? The United card earns only United miles, so I can't transfer those out. But the Chase Freedom, for example, earns ultimate reward points. And assuming I could transfer those out to United, yes, they would be the same. So Chase's default rate for all of its partners is they transfer out at a 1-to-1 rate. So if I have 100,000 Chase points, at the floor value, I could transfer it to a 100,000 United miles. Now, they sometimes do hold promotions where they will give you a transfer bonus. So for example, maybe it's a 50% bonus, so I could transfer 100,000 Chase points to 150,000 United miles. But in terms of like actually booking the flight, you would have to send them to United first anyways, so the points cost would be identical. But like you can't, if you were going to redeem Chase directly for travel, you would have to do it through the Chase Travel portal, and then the points values can be completely different there. So yeah, all these points currencies have very fluctuating values among them. Like they're not all equal. Oh, yes?
If you transfer points out of Chase, is there a way to then like transfer them back in?
Great question. So if you transfer points out of Chase, can you transfer them back in? No. Once they are out of Chase, they are gone. You can never get them back. So make sure that when you do transfer them out, that you really want them in that transfer partner. Because yeah, you can't get them back at all. Yes?
So like how much, like does it take any cost to like transfer the points like between like different Chase accounts? Or just
Oh,
within Chase?
great question. Yeah. So does it cost any points to transfer between Chase accounts, or let's say to your the one other member of your household? No. It's entirely free. You can do it as much as you want. You can transfer any amount you want. So yeah, you can. There's no limits on that. But when transferring them out to partners, you have to do it in increments of 1,000. But there's no cost for Chase points to transfer between each other. Yeah, it's entirely free.
I have another
Yes.
question. I don't know if we're gonna cover it later, but do you ever recommend like buying points because like they always devaluate? Like is that those are risky to like buy them?
Great question. So does it make sense to buy points? For Chase points and Amex points, you pretty much can't buy them because they don't sell them ever. However, for a lot of the co-branded partners like IHG, Hyatt, Marriott, etc., they do often sell the points, or they always pretty much sell the points. Usually it never ever makes sense to buy points at face value. However, they do have sales on the points sometimes. So for example, IHG points right now are having targeted offers for a 50% off sale, effectively. That can be very, very good. As an example of what you could get with that, there's a hotel in the Cayman Islands I've been looking at, and the cash rate is around $1,600 for the time I want to go. That's expensive, right? That's very expensive. So I would not pay that at all. However, if I were to book it with IHG points that I purchased, I could get it for about $260 a night. So it can make sense on a sale if you have a specific redemption in mind that you would book right after. So the idea being, oh, okay, I want to go to the Cayman Islands. I know the dates I want to go to the Cayman Islands. I see they're accepting points. I compare how much it would cost me if I bought the points versus if I paid cash, and then I buy the points and immediately book the hotel. In that case, yes, it absolutely can make sense. But in most cases, it doesn't make sense to buy points if you don't have a specific redemption in mind that you know would make the purchase cost of those points significantly lower than the cash price of the hotel. Any other questions? Yes?
Would you ever want to apply for like a co-branded card?
Would I ever want to apply for a co-branded card? Yes. So it depends. Just because the points currencies are fixed doesn't mean they're not good. For example, Hyatt points are very, very, very valuable. If I have Chase points, I'm pretty much always transferring to Hyatt. So having Hyatt co-branded points isn't necessarily a bad thing. And there's other benefits to the cards besides the points earning rate. It's not just about what the points currency that I earn is, it's about other benefits of the card. So for example, let's say I have the World of Hyatt card. It earns a good amount of Hyatt points on Hyatt stays, but that's not really why you have the card. One of the benefits of the card is you pay the annual fee, but you get a free night certificate with Hyatt that is worth more than the annual fee. So yes, I would want to apply for co-branded cards. Also because, for example, on Chase, there's not that many Ultimate Rewards earning cards. So I would run out pretty quickly if I was only going for Chase flexible currency cards. Yes?
So with the co-branded cards, can you use the points accumulated on a co-branded card only with that brand, or can you use them in other places too?
Can you only use the points on a co-branded, for a co-branded card on that specific brand, or can you use it other places? Pretty much only on that co-branded card, or only on that co-branded brand, right? Some currencies like Marriott do allow you to transfer it to other places. However, it's a very suboptimal redemption usually. It usually makes sense to stick within that brand to use the points. There are cases when it could make sense to not do that, but usually within the brand.
So would you recommend just taking like a general purpose card like Ultimate Rewards over a specific branded card?
Would I recommend picking like a flexible over a specific branded? It's not about necessarily picking one or the other. My response is why not both? We can get both of those cards. The ordering of which you do it could depend on the current offers and what the cards offer to you. It's just important to know the differences. It's usually better. The point of this is that with your flexible currency, it's usually best to leave it in its flexible currency form right until you want to redeem them. So if I want to make a Hyatt redemption, I'd leave it in my Chase account right up until I'm ready to book Hyatt, then transfer, then book. So just because I have these co-branded points, they're not worse necessarily, it's just they have a bit more of a risk to them in that sense. But the cards, pretty much some of the best credit cards out there are actually co-branded cards. And we're going to cover some today a little bit, but just because it's co-branded does not mean worse at all. It's just, there's just different benefits to each. So, okay. In terms of transferring Ultimate Reward points to Travel Partners, there's something we have to note here. Not all UR earning cards can actually transfer to the partners. There's a lot of Chase cards, or at least a decent amount of Chase cards, that earn Ultimate Reward points. They can't all go to transfer partners. So cards that earn UR points that cannot be transferred to transfer partners are the Chase Freedom Flex, the Chase Inc. Business Cash, the Chase Inc. Unlimited, and the Chase Inc. Or sorry, no, not the Chase Inc. Unlimited. Sorry, Chase Freedom Flex, Chase Freedom or Chase Business Cash, Chase Freedom Unlimited, Chase Business Inc. Unlimited. So the left two are freedoms, the right two are inks. So they earn Ultimate Rewards, but you cannot send them to the partners. So to send them to the partners, you would have to hold at least one of these cards. that you would then transfer your points from these over to one of these. So examples of those are the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Chase Ink Business Preferred, and if it would show up, the Chase Sapphire Reserve. So you must hold one of these 3 cards, and then you could transfer your points from these cards over to these to get them to the transfer partners. You only need to hold one of them though. You could hold all 3, there's no problem with that theoretically, but you only need one. So if you are going to be transferring them out, you definitely are going to need one of those. And like you probably never heard of these cards. We're going to go through some examples of popular cards today. So for American Express, there's a lot more American Express point earning cards. So their flexible points currency is called membership rewards. So we'll be calling those MR. So there's a lot of MR earning cards. So these, as I said before, they're all pooled into one account. If I hold any MR earning card, I have one MR account. If I hold 5 MR cards and then I close 4 of them, that's fine. I keep all my MR points as long as I have one open. That's the key. You cannot transfer MR points to another person. It does not, like Amex does not allow you to. The thing is, also with Amex points, they can be cashed out in a variety of different ways. Pretty much only one of them is any good. Still don't recommend it though. We'll cover it in the future. Amex points are much worse for cash value than Chase, in my opinion. There's a way to get higher cash value than Chase, but it involves you opening a specific card and then transferring the points to that card. It's kind of a headache. And to be honest, if you're in the premium card points game, cashing out isn't really the optimal thing to be thinking about here. It's not really going to move the needle that much. Yes?
So you said like you can't transfer MR points, but then like let's say, can you basically use the points to book it under someone's name for a hotel? So you're basically letting a person stay in the hotel without transferring the points for them?
Great question. So yeah, you said you couldn't transfer the points, but could you book travel for another person? So this gets a little tricky here. So for Amex points directly, the only travel you can book with these without transferring them is through their travel portal at a rate of 1 cent per point. On that, I don't know specifically if you could book travel for someone else. From my understanding, you probably could. However, booking any type of travel through the American Express portal with points is not optimal. We want better value for the points. Now, in terms of let's say I transfer the points to my account, could I then use the points, let's say on my Marriott account, to book travel for someone else? It depends on the specific partner. So some hotel companies do let you do that. Some hotel companies and airplane companies do not let you do that. It does depend on the transfer partner. One note with how these points kind of work as well, you can only transfer points out to your own account. So for example, I can only transfer MR points to my own Marriott account or an account of my authorized user. So let's say I have a friend, I want to transfer them points. I could always add them as an authorized user and then transfer the points to them that way. But for the most part, yeah, you're not going to be able to transfer MR points to another person directly, at least. Any other questions? Okay, so in terms of transferring MR points to their travel partners, all MR earning points, all MR earning cards, all MR earning cards can transfer to travel partners. There's no restrictions. There's no like premium ones that can transfer and non-premium ones that can't. All US American Express MR earning cards can transfer to all of their travel partners. So these are cards that can transfer, and there's a lot more that I'm not showing here, just for simplicity. So there's the Amex Everyday, Amex Everyday Preferred, Amex Blue Business Plus, Amex Green, Amex Gold, Amex Business Gold, Amex Business Platinum, Amex Platinum, plenty more. So there's a lot more MR earning cards on American Express's side. We haven't talked about business credit cards yet, and you'll notice I've kind of mentioned business credit cards a few times. It's like this is a business card, this one is too, and some of the Chase ones are. You can get business cards actually. You don't have to own a like big company to have a business card by any means. I have 5 myself. We'll explain how to do that later though. So just because it says business, don't think, oh, you're never going to be able to get it. You can get it. We'll teach you later. Any questions? So let's look at some popular cards now. So the first kind of category of card this is the most basic card, the simplest. These are your catch-all cards. The idea being, I may have cards that earn high in certain categories that give me higher multipliers, but what about just a general spending card, right? If I'm putting rent on my card, there's no real multiplier for that from any like real credit card companies. So the idea is I want the maximum return on general spending that doesn't fall into a specific category. So the most notable one that people may have heard of is the Citi Double Cash. So Citi points are called thank you points, so TY points. This is what the card looks like. It earns 2x thank you on everything. You can cash thank you points out at a rate of 1 cent per point. That's kind of why it's called the double cash. You earn 2% cash back on everything. However, technically, you actually earn 2x thank you points on everything, which you could cash out at a rate of effectively being 2% cash back. But it is thank you points, so remember that. So it is like their actual transferable points currency. It's similar to Chase, where you need to have another card to actually transfer them out, but still earns 2x thank you. And yeah, there's no annual fee, and that's it. That's the whole card. Very, very simple card. That's all it does. No special categories. It just earns 2x thank you points on everything. Another popular one we just kind of looked at is the Amex Blue Business Plus. This one I have. It's a very good card. So this is a business credit card, right? We'll talk about how to get these later. That's what the card looks like. It earns 2x MR on everything, up to $50,000 in spending per calendar year. I don't think anyone's getting really that close on general spending to 50K, at least now. So I think that cap should be fine. No annual fee. That's the whole card. Like that's all there is to it. It's a very simple card as well. We're not going to be talking about the sign-up bonuses on these cards today, just because sign-up bonuses can change a lot. And they also do fundamentally change whether or not you should be getting a card. Usually when you get a new credit card, especially if you have built up decent credit history, you want to be adding at the low end in the hundreds of dollars of value just from the bonus. Hundreds to thousands at least. So keep that in mind. Just because we look at a card here that may earn a lot of points today on general spending, doesn't mean you should get it right now. There are cards that you could get that have very, very high bonuses where no matter how high these multipliers are, you're not going to spend enough money to where it makes a difference. The bonuses are really what moves the needle. But in terms of the benefits of the card, that's what we'll talk about today. So another card is the Chase Freedom Unlimited. There's two current Chase Freedom Series cards that people can apply for. So the Freedom and the Freedom Unlimited. This is cool. So this is what the card looks like. It earns 1.5x UR on everything, so general spending. And it's kind of unique for a catch-all card because it also has some categories. It earns 3x UR at restaurants, 3x UR at drugstores, 5x UR on, quote, travel. And I have to be careful about how we say travel here because it only counts of travel through the Chase travel portal. So if I go book travel through like Hyatt or Marriott directly, which often you want to do, you're not going to get the 5x. It has to be through their travel portal. And there's also no annual fee. Also, the multipliers don't stack. This applies to all the cards, right? Just because I earn like 1.5x on everything doesn't mean like that stacks with the restaurants. This is like saying if I spend money at restaurants, I earn a total of 3x per dollar, right? And this is all in dollars spent. So if I spend $1, I get 1.5 UR. Any questions? So now I want to look at rotating category cards. So these are cards where maybe as a baseline, they don't have as high of a multiplier, but they have categories which rotate, which can have much, much higher multipliers and can make a bigger difference. So kind of the number one card in this category is the Chase Freedom Flex. So, right, again, these are very popular cards. This is what it looks like. You earn 1x UR on everything, 3x UR at restaurants, 3x UR at drugstores. This is very similar to the Freedom Unlimited, almost identical. The difference is here, it only earns 1x on everything, but also you earn 5x on rotating categories. So this is where it can be a big difference. Earning 5x on spending can actually move the needle a decent amount. And to see kind of what these categories are, this is an example chart. This isn't like current or anything, but this is similar to what the calendar will be. These change every quarter, but you can see we have very common spending categories, such as wholesale clubs, so like Costco, something like that, gas station, home improvement stores, grocery stores, and then Walmart and PayPal. PayPal is very cool because any merchant that accepts PayPal, you can now get the 5X on when they have this category. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, you can see very, very common categories. These aren't like some obscure thing that you couldn't ever really earn a lot of money on or a lot of spending on. Like grocery stores, right? That's probably your number one spending category other than rent. So it can be very, very useful. There's also another Chase Freedom card as well that you can't apply for it anymore, but you can still kind of get it through a weird little process, but we won't cover it today. We talked about this before, the Discover It, right? This is what I recommend for the first credit card if you don't have any credit history at all. So it's 1% cash back on everything, 5% cash back on rotating categories, and you can see an example of the category chart here. Also very similar to Chase, actually, just very common categories. And they tend to not really overlap that much on the same quarters. But yeah, again, very useful categories. What questions do we have so far? All right, so now we're going to talk about standard category cards. So these are cards which maybe they have high multipliers, but it's just usually in one static category. They don't change around every quarter. And the only one we're going to talk about today is the American Express Gold card. So this card earns 1x MR on everything, 4x, sorry, that should say MR, not UR, 4x MR at restaurants, also should say MR, 4x MR at grocery stores. It does have a $250 annual fee. This is different than the other earner cards we looked at. Pretty much every card we've looked at so far is what we call a workhorse card. Those are the cards you put a lot of spending on to get the high multipliers. This one, though, seems to have a high annual fee. So how are we supposed to justify paying this big annual fee to earn all these points, right? Because if I'm not spending that much money, I might not be earning enough points to offset the fee. So American Express isn't completely stupid. So they're not saying, oh, you're going to have to pay $250 for this card and get nothing back. There are credits that offset this annual fee. And whether or not they are useful to you is for you to decide, but we'll look at what those credits are. And this is an example of how we can start to offset annual fee cards. So by default, we have a $250 annual fee. That's pretty high. That's a bit of a high cost. But we do get some credits on this. You get $10 a month for Uber, and this also does work for Uber Eats. So theoretically, and also remember on Uber Eats, you can pick up food. So if you order food from like Snack Pass or Uber Eats once a month, there you go, you can pretty much value that at face value, $10 a month. So that's $120 a year. The other credit you get is a $10 per month dining credit. And when I say dining, it's not like at any restaurant. It's only at like Grubhub, Seamless, and Boxed. And they used to have some other like restaurants, but this one's more limited. But if you do use Grubhub, for example, then you could value it decently. So if you value both of these credits, at face value, also these don't roll over, so you do have to use them every month. If you don't use it, they expire. If you value all of these credits at face value, you now have an effective annual fee of $10. That's a lot easier to justify. $10 for this card is an absolute steal. But the question you have to ask yourself is, how much do you actually value these credits? If you use Uber or Uber Eats every month, then you can value this at full face value. If you don't, maybe you say, okay, it's only worth 70% of what it is, or 50%, right? That's kind of what we're looking at here. Sending with this dining credit, maybe this is harder to use. Maybe I say, okay, you know what, this is only worth $5 a month to me, because I probably wouldn't use Grubhub otherwise, but with this credit, maybe I will. So what questions do we have about like this card or any of the kind of concepts? Okay, so now hold on. There we go. I want to talk about sock drawer cards now. So these are the last type of cards we're going to talk about today. Sock drawer cards are kind of what they sound like. You get them, and then all you got to do is put them in your sock drawer and never look at them again. You still want to do dummy charges on them every few months to keep them active, but the idea is I'm getting this card for the recurring benefit every year, and I could just put it in my sock drawer and forget about it, and that's all I really need to do. So as our first example, we have the Chase World of Hyatt card. This card has a $95 annual fee, but there's going to be some benefits that can help offset this. So you get 4x Hyatt points for Hyatt spending. Okay, who cares unless I'm spending a lot at Hyatt. You get automatic Hyatt Discover status. We have not talked about hotel status at all, so like don't worry about this yet, but you do get some level of hotel status automatically from having the card. We'll go all later in the course about like what hotel statuses are good. But here's what offsets the annual fee. You get an annual category 1 to 4 Hyatt free night. We did kind of look at that Hyatt award chart before. In case you forget though, we're gonna look at an example of what this could be worth. So approximate value for the certificate is about $200 to $350 retail, depending on how I'm using it for what hotel. But the idea being, if I want to go traveling anyways, instead of me saying, hey, if I'm going to go stay at a hotel at Hyatt, I'm going to pay $200, $250, $300, I could get this card, pay $95, get some other perks that it has, then get the free night, which pays for the card itself, assuming I did want to travel and did want to stay at Hyatt-owned hotels. As an example of what you could redeem this for, a Category 4 hotel is the Hyatt Regency in Sonoma Wine Country. So this is about 2 hours away. And this is the Category 4, and depending on the rate, this is just a random date I picked, I think in like March or April, and you can see the base room goes for $275 a night. I also made sure in all these examples we're going to look at, the dates I'm showing you and what the cash prices are, you could redeem points on the dates, and everything would work fine. There's no like, oh, it's not available on this date. This is a date when points were available, and if you were to book the base room, it'd be $275 plus taxes and whatever fees they charge. But with a free certificate night, it would be nothing. So the idea is I'm paying $95, I'm getting something that is significantly more valuable at a hotel that maybe I wanted to stay at anyways, and it makes it much more attainable. Another example of a hotel keeper card or stock drawer card is the Chase IHG Premier. This has an $89 annual fee, soon to be $99 starting in March. You earn 10x IHG points for IHG spending. Again, remember that not all points currencies are created equal. So just because I earn more points doesn't necessarily mean it's better, because they're IHG points, which aren't that valuable. You do get automatic IHG Platinum status. Again, we're not going to talk about the statuses exactly just yet. But again, here's what offsets the annual fee. An annual 40,000 point free night with IHG hotels, worth approximately $175 to $300. And an additional benefit of this card, actually, and this is very useful, is when you're doing points redemptions with IHG, you get the 4th night free. So if I pay for 3 nights, I get the 4th free. That's something that can actually be pretty useful and can save you a good amount, right? If you're booking in 4-night increments, it's a 25% rebate on your points. Any questions so far?
What's the annual
Yes.
40,000
Oh.
point free night?
Oh, so yes, in terms of what this free night is, we're going to look right now on the next slide of what an example of what you can redeem for this. So as an example use case, there is the Kimpton Hotel. It's in Los Angeles, and this is just a random date I picked, I think in like April or March as well. And you could book points, exactly 40,000 points for this hotel for the night, and the cash price is $238. So significantly more value than what I am paying for the annual fee. Yes, I do have to stay at the hotel and have wanted to stay at a hotel to make it worth it. But again, the philosophy is, if I want to travel anyways, and I want to go explore places anyways, instead of paying the hotel cost out of pocket always, you could get certain cards that make sense for you to use their recurring free night certificates to reduce your travel cost. Another example, this is where we're going to go look at some premium cards here. There's the American Express Marriott Brilliant card, $450 annual fee. These are the big boy cards. You earn 6x Marriott points for Marriott spending, automatic Marriott Gold status. Honestly, like at this point, let's ignore that. Let's look more at the concrete stuff. Annual 50,000 point free night. Let's look at that, what that can do in a second. That's worth about $300 to $600, depending on how you use it. Additionally, you also get a $300 statement credit toward Marriott spending. So I pay $450, but then let's say I go book a Marriott hotel for $300, that gets reimbursed. So my effective annual fee on this card is actually only $150, assuming I value this Marriott credit at face value. If I wanted to go to a Marriott hotel anyways, it might make sense to get the card, put it on the card, earn the higher points multiplier, get the credit reimbursed, then get the free night. So what can you get with this free night? This is actually an example of a place I want to go soon, very soon actually, maybe in a week or two. This is the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. On the dates here, for what this price was, it's 50,000 points exactly. So you could stay at this hotel using that free night certificate, and instead of paying $779, you just use your free night certificate. This is definitely an example of a really good use case of these free night certificates. There are plenty of worse ones, but you can see what's possible. One thing to note about free night certificates from hotel programs is notice we have a 50,000 point cap. That doesn't mean if I spend less than 50,000 points, I get reimbursed. If I go stay at a hotel that's 20,000 points, the certificate is gone either way. So when I have these certificates, I want to use them for the highest, most expensive hotel possible. Because if I go to a 20,000 point hotel or a 50,000 point hotel, the certificate is 100% gone either way. So when you have your certificate nights, max them out to the most you can do. There's no point in saving them for a budget place because they're gone either way. Go baller on those certificate nights. So our final example of a hotel keeper card. This is a card I want very, 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 very badly. In fact, my goal one day is to hold 2 or 3 of these cards. The Amex Hilton Aspire card. Again, a $450 annual fee card. So significant cost. You earn 14x Hilton points on Hilton spending. Sounds very good, but Hilton points aren't worth that much. You get automatic Hilton Diamond status. This is interesting because it's actually their highest tier. They do not offer a status level higher than this. And what's kind of happened, which is really interesting, is Hilton Diamond status within the United States is kind of gotten worthless because everyone has it from this card. However, this card doesn't exist in any markets outside the US. So you go internationally, hold this card with this status, you get treated pretty well because you're not competing with everyone with this card anymore. Most people internationally don't have anything close to Hilton Diamond. So you can get treated pretty well. Yes?
So all the hotel cards, are they for hotels only in like the US or the Americas or outside the US as well?
So are the hotel cards like only for the US or outside as well? The hotel cards are only issued, those cards we looked at, those are only issued within the United States.
Right, but like do the benefits translate abroad? So like can you use points abroad as well?
Yes, the benefits absolutely translate abroad and they can be used abroad as well. So if I have Hilton Diamond status in the US, I go anywhere in the world, I can get my Hilton Diamond status honored there, right? I go travel to Europe, it's still fully honored there. I can use my points to redeem there at the same rate. It's all equivalent across the whole chain. Great question. So, oh yes?
Get for having a high status, like an adding.
Great question. So yeah, we'll talk more extensively about this later, but in terms of more concrete benefits of what like hotel status means. So we'll talk first about like the less cool parts and then the cooler parts. The less cool parts, you earn a higher points rate. So like when I spend at the hotel, more points, who cares? The real reasons that people want hotel status are 1, free breakfast. So Hilton Diamond or Hilton Gold for that matter, give you free breakfast at any Hilton hotel. In the US, it's not really that valuable. Internationally, it can be. If you're staying at a 5-star hotel, they may give you breakfast for 2 people, which would normally cost $50 per person per day. When I was in Vegas, I only had Hilton Gold, but I got a $50 dining credit just by having Hilton Gold. So it could add a decent amount of savings, right, by getting dining credits. So particularly mainly breakfast, right? If you're in the Maldives and breakfast is like $70 a person and having status gets you breakfast for 2 for free, significant savings there. So that's one. The other benefit, and this is really only applicable at the higher end statuses like Hilton Diamond, is they are supposed to give you suite upgrades when the suites are not booked. So if I, let's say, go to Europe and I go check into some Hilton-owned property there, and they have a bunch of suites available that no one booked, they're supposed to give it to me for free. Do they always honor that? Not necessarily, but you're significantly more likely to get a suite upgrade. And sometimes that can be pretty valuable. So it also depends on what country you're traveling to, right? If you're traveling to a country that really has no Hilton Diamond members, then you're much more likely to get an upgrade. It can be significant. It really depends on if you value the suites or not. One of our guest speakers actually, Sebi Fung, he made a video about being in Dubai with the status. He booked the lowest room at the Hilton there. He got upgraded to a 3-bedroom suite, which was like quadruple the cost. So It really depends on where you travel, but it is actually a pretty unique benefit. There's some other things on this card as well that offset the fee. This is the number one thing, the annual weekend free night. Hilton free nights are the most overpowered free nights in the credit card game. They're uncapped. We'll show an example of what you could use the free night for in a second. It also earns a $250 statement credit toward Hilton resort spending. So it's not at every Hilton, but at the resort properties, and there's a list online, you have a $250 credit to spend there. So it could be to the room rate, it could be to dining there, stuff like that. You also earn a $250 credit toward airline incidental fees. This one's a bit tricky. It's supposed to only be to incidental fees, like seat change fees, baggage fees, stuff like that. You can actually, there's ways to use this credit to bring it closer to like airfare cost. So I was actually able to use a similar credit to this to buy me a bunch of Southwest credit. So I now have a big bulk load of Southwest travel credit in my account ready to use because of those. So we'll talk about later how to use that. Oh, did you have a question in the back? No. And so yeah, if you value these at face value, you're already coming out $500, like you're already coming out with a negative $450 effective fee if you value them at face value. Even if you don't, this is what makes this card powerful, the free weekend night. Why is this so good?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, well, when you say the free night, do you still have to pay the resort fee?
Great question. Do you have to pay the resort fee? Because a lot of hotels do charge those pesky resort fees. It depends on the program. So for Hyatt and Hilton, no, they do not charge resort fees on free night awards. For IHG and Marriott, yes, they do. So for that Ritz-Carlton example, they'll probably charge you about a $50 resort fee. So you do have to pay that still. But for Hilton and Hyatt, you do not. So why is this so good? You can use it at virtually any Hilton-owned property. Like, there is literally like a handful of exceptions. This normally must be a weekend night, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They kind of changed it because of the pandemic to work on any night, but typically it's a weekend night. The standard room must be available at whatever hotel you're trying to book. You can't go book into the premium suite. It must have a standard room available to book on points for the standard rate. But what is an example of what a really good redemption for this might be? Hold on. There we go. Okay. So this is the Waldorf in Cabo. It is extremely nice. It is also extremely expensive. It is $1,800 for one night there. This was looked at a few days in advance, but this is a pretty typical rate for the hotel. Maybe you could get it a decent amount lower. It's going to be very, very, very expensive. Having the free night award, and again, this is a date I chose with the ability to book with the free night award, you could stay in this room for free and not pay the resort fee. Very powerful, especially if you get multiple people with the card. Let's say you and your friend combined have 3 of these cards. You could book 3 nights here off those free night certificates. Yes, the annual fee is still there, but if you are offsetting it with these credits, and there's also other benefits of the card as well I didn't even talk about, like you have airport lounge access to this card, which can be useful, but even without that, the idea is you look at the credits, you look at the math behind it, and you look at where you'd want to use the free night and see, do you come out ahead? Oh, you see the question?
Yeah. What do you mean by have multiple of these cards?
Wonderful question. So how do you get multiple of these cards? So you can only apply for the card directly like once, but there are actually 3 American Express Hilton cards. So the idea is I could apply for this card, and then I could apply for one of the no annual fee Hilton cards, or one of the low tier annual fee Hilton cards. And then after a year of holding it, I could upgrade it to this card, and Amex will let you do that. You won't earn an extra sign-up bonus, but you will get all the benefits a second time. And so you could also, let's say, have a friend hold the card as well. And if you and a friend hold the card, you got 2 weekend nights. Even though I'm talking about how great this card is and everything, again, always do the math for you. You have to look at what do you value these 2 credits at? How much value will you get from them? Where would you use the free weekend night? Stuff like that. You have to make the decision for yourself. I can only present the information and what the card provides. So that is pretty much all I have today. The action items are going to complete the survey on creditcal.org. This is the QR code at the beginning of class if you already did it. And then also, there's going to be 2 links for Amex and Chase, like their whole card portfolio. Just briefly review them all. Just kind of skim over them, get yourself familiar with what the cards are, and some of the benefits if you can. That's it